Are you guys come up to deliver whatever the online chat is? You guys going to come up to deliver the online choices?
Yes,
or is yourself?
Dawn is in charge of it today.
Okay.
And I'm doing making up with it.
Yeah.
She's on today, and I'm working on helping them find their corporate business.
Great. All right, everyone. Follow me. One deep breath. I'm so glad you're here this morning. Let us now settle into a spirit of worship, with a moment of quiet to be followed by the music of Ashokan Farewell by Jay Unger, played by Matthew Johnson on the piano and Diane Mann on the organ. You are all...
Don't say that.
You are also invited to light a silent candle with joy or sorrow at this time. Do I have one of our RE participants who wants to light the chalice this morning? Anyone? No one? Come here. Come on. Well done. After this week, I need to be reminded as many times as I can that the light of our future are our children. These are the words of my colleague and friend, Maureen Kalorian. Welcome you who come in need of healing. You who are confused or maybe betrayed. Welcome with your problems and your pain. Welcome to your joys and your wonderings. Welcome your need for hope, your longing for assurance. Instead of answers, here you may find safely for your questions. Instead of promises, may you find community for your struggles. People with hands and hearts to join you in engaging the challenges and the changes of our day. I want to announce that I am not Linda Morse. Linda is not able to be with us this morning. She sends her deepest regards. And so I offer you these words of welcome. Good morning. Good morning. Let's try it one more time. Good morning. Good morning. Outstanding. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, a congregation of love, hope, and justice, inspiring people to take on the challenges of a changing world. My name is Aaron Payson, and I am honored to be one of the ministers of this congregation. We begin by acknowledging that in Worcester, Massachusetts, we work, learn, live, and worship on the seized ancestral homeland of the Nipmuc people who survive and remain active as the Nipmuc tribe. We offer our special welcome to those of you who are new or visiting with us for the first time this morning. We're delighted that you're here. We hope that you will join us in our fellowship hall following the service for refreshments and conversation. Today is Soup Sunday, which normally is about $5 to receive a bowl of soup, but anyone who requests soups will receive it today, regardless of whether there's a $5 in it or not. We have, I believe, taco soup made by my wife. And those of you who know me over the last 25 years, you've seen me expand significantly because of my wife's soups. So I warn you ahead of time. The other, I believe, is a vegan option potato soup, if I'm not mistaken. So I hope that you will enjoy the soup this morning. I also have made homemade Jewish apple cake with no nuts. When I brought it in this morning, it was warm. I cannot guarantee there will be any left by the time you get there. I understand that the kitchen staff is eyeing it with a great deal of angst. If you have any questions, those of you who are new or desire more information about this service or any of the ministries and programs of this congregation, please do not hesitate to ask any one of us. We invite you to fill out one of the pew cards found in the pew slots in front of you. They can be placed in the offering plate when it comes around or given to one of our ushers or greeters this morning. For those of you joining us online this morning, we offer you a very special welcome. For safety purposes and so that we might come to know you better as you are able, please do place your name on your video feed. Please take a moment to sign one of the clipboards, attendance clipboards that are now being circulated. Though you're not obligated to sign, we appreciate your information and will use it only for church purposes. During the service, we offer an opportunity to share a brief personal joy or sorrow. If you would like yours to be read aloud by me, please print it on one of the index cards found in the pew slot in front of you and place it in the offering plate or bring it forward during that time in the service. These cards will also be posted outside of my office to be shared with friends at other services. For those of you online, we invite you to place your joy or sorrow in the chat preceded by the words, "Please read," so that we can find it during this time of the service and share it accordingly. In the foyer are listening devices, large print programs, large print hymnals, and cushions for those of you who sitting on a wooden pew. Make it a spiritual discipline not to continue to be sore. And you know who you are. So please do see one of the ushers or greeters to help you with any of that. I invite you now to turn your technology to worship mode. And finally, please note the announcements on the back of your order of service this morning. We'll have time for very short verbal announcements following the service. We are so glad that you are here, and we hope this morning is an opportunity for rest, reflection, and rejuvenation. Our opening words today are those of the Reverend Angela Hirara, who writes, "Don't leave your broken heart at the door. Bring it to the altar of life. Don't leave your anger behind. It has high standards, and the world needs vision. Bring them with you, and your joy, and your passion. Bring your loving, and your courage, and your conviction. Bring your need for healing, and your power to heal. There is work to do, and you have all that you need to do it, right here in this room." Would you please join together in our opening hymn this morning, number 102, found in your teal hymnals. "Comfort Me." Please rise in body or in spirit. participants who have their baskets of change for change. Our basket bearers make their way through the sanctuary every time we are in worship in order to continue their support for the ministry of our emergency fund. If you have change that you would like to contribute this morning, please raise your hand and one of our basket bearers will find you. Also, if you have items to be contributed to the food collection for today, please send them to the center aisle and they will also be gathered. Off for a wonderful day of learning and friendship. Love and peace, in the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Love and peace, may the spirit of good surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. Those of you of a certain generation will remember the supermarket scene from Animal House. I have flashbacks every time we do this.
Good morning. My name is Dave Showalter, and I'm a member of UUCW's 8th Principal Task Force. The 8th Principal Task Force aims to educate and inspire our community to incorporate anti-racist and anti-oppressive commitments as part of our faith. The 8th Principal Moment is a monthly opportunity to think more deeply about how racism and oppression manifests in our everyday lives and continue to hold such issues in the forefront of our hearts and minds. We have our work cut out for us, don't we? This month's 8th Principal Moment is from Evan Wilson, who could not be here this morning. It centered on the ways that individuals at UUCW alerted small group ministries and the Board of Management to ways we could demonstrate our solidarity to call out the inequitable distribution of funding that the City of Worcester received from the federal government following the COVID pandemic. If you're not familiar with the organization The Village, they're located in Main South on King Street in the Old Stone Soup Building, now an Afrocentric community center. The Village, in partnership with other BIPOC community organizers, alerted the Worcester community about concerns with how the American Rescue Plan Act funds were not, how those funds were being allocated. After being notified by members of Side with Love and 8th Principal Task Force, UUCW's Board of Management agreed to sign on to a letter of concern that was shared with city officials. And I'll take some time now to read just a couple of excerpts of that letter. On August 20th, 2024, the City of Worcester announced the grantees for the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, cultural grants. The city allocated $2.95 million to alleviate the negative impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic experienced by organizations whose work is rooted in elevating arts and culture for the community. While the organizations that are led by and serve Black, Indigenous people of color, BIPOC, and low-income community members in the city appreciate receiving funding, we are additionally disappointed to see blatant racial equity issues in the disbursement of the awards. Despite attempts by some city staff to do targeted outreach and extend deadlines to try and have more BIPOC organizations apply, the spread of the list is disturbingly, quote, business as usual, unquote, for the city of Worcester. Large organizations that do not employ or primarily serve BIPOC or low-income residents of our community at the top, and organizations that do on the bottom. We do not expect the city to, and know the city will not, revoke funding from any top awardees to balance this issue of equity in funding. However, it must be acknowledged that this is not the first time smaller BIPOC-led organizations have experienced major challenges in accessing funding through the city. So to close, we ultimately write this letter for two reasons. One, ensure that the perspective of marginalized community members is documented. The tone of most articles and reports regarding the ARPA cultural grants has mainly been celebratory, which only captures the perspective of those whose stories are traditionally prioritized over others, and not the instant shock and frustration from those who hold marginalized identities and who are no strangers to this trend from the city. Number two, to urge folks to keep an eye on and demand that the city use the remaining ARPA funds for the communities that it was originally intended for. BIPOC, low income, and folks in neighborhoods that unequivocally experienced harm as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I know we're all processing the results of the recent election, but this is to stress that we have an opportunity to think critically about what's happening in our local community, to demonstrate solidarity and support for people who are impacted by unjust and systemic forces, and to continue to bring our increased awareness and propensity for action to build the world we hope for every day. Thank you.
It's been a long week, amen? The results of last week's election continue to weigh heavily on many. While some count this week's results as a sign that perhaps change is coming. I'm mindful in saying this that for me, as I suspect many of you, the change we were hoping for did not materialize. And many of us have spent the past few days pondering what all this means for our future and that of our country and world. I've been immensely grateful for the thoughtful conversations this week with many of you who have offered your grief, your sadness, your rage, your witness, and your hope. Some will say this time is different. And in many ways it is. We will not face a contested election this time, and there will be a peaceful transfer of power between administrations. How that power will be wielded has yet to be fully understood. Though there are many clues that are the substance of much of the continuing angst and worry among many of us. For those who experienced this election as a victory, I would ask that your gladness be tempered with the ability to hear why so many people are scared and grieving. If you voted in order to realize a different set of economic priorities, I hope that you will also join efforts to protect those made most vulnerable by the promises that have been articulated throughout this campaign. Some say that religion ought not mix with politics. I, in knee-jerk reaction, say, then you haven't read the Gospels. That said, my read of almost all of ancient Scripture suggests that our sages have found cause and power as a conscience for those in positions of civic authority. Which is to say that while we are, as a religious institution, required not to demand support for particular candidates for political office, it would be a declaration It would be a dereliction of our moral duty as a religious community not to speak boldly about the moral implications of political platforms. And to be clear, that obligation is not meant for one party or the other, but must find its voice as a harbinger for justice and truth regardless of who is in office. And it is here that part of our purpose remains unchanged as a community of faith. We are and will always be a herald for justice and truth. The process by which we come to understand truth remains that we are open to diverse voices and experiences, which necessitates an ethic of wide welcome. We do not ascribe to any form of political test to belong here, nor do we believe in any one religious route through eternity or individual destiny. We do, however, govern ourselves by virtue of a covenant, which invites us to support and uphold an atmosphere here that is welcoming, loving, celebratory, and safe. We are a community open to diverse views and are open-hearted and open-minded in our exchange of such views. We treat each other with kindness and respect, and we approach conflict with humility, intending that when we are at a relational impasse, we find peaceful resolution. Our fundamental purpose is that of spiritual and intellectual growth for all who participate. And by our common efforts, we support that which is just and seek to positively transform our community and our world. We also hold in common our obligation to maintain and grow the resources necessary for the mission and ministries of this place, while we foster fellowship and enjoyment of each other along the way. By saying this, we are not in any way advocating an environment where anything goes. Our behavior and how we judge that which is acceptable is a reflection of those promises that we make toward each other. I'm mindful here of an incident that I was involved with years ago when I was helping the congregation in Knoxville, Tennessee, that had experienced a shooting during a children's performance. The year after this occurred, when I was standing with members of the safety team there, being confronted by a fellow who was vehemently arguing that, did we not understand that this thing happened because women are taking over the world, yada, yada, yada. And to their credit, members of that safety team had been standing listening to this fellow for about 20 minutes. Now, it's important to know that 20 feet behind this fellow and those who were standing in front of him were about 20 sheriff's officers. When I stepped forward and listened for a couple of minutes, I interrupted him and I said, I appreciate your perspective, but I'm going to ask you to leave now. You are not welcome here. And I said, and if you don't leave quietly, I'm going to ask the people behind you to arrest you and remove you from the property. And he did not leave quietly. He was arrested and charged with criminal trespass and did not return. I thought that he would have borne the greater amount of angst about the situation, but it turned out that the people on the safety team were actually the ones that were most traumatized by what had occurred. To a person, none of them had ever experienced someone being told they were unwelcome in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. They had been told everyone was welcome. So as we walked back into the building, I paused for a moment and I said, do you see these words on the side of your building that are part of your covenant? What is the last line of that covenant? And we read together, those who wish to enter into the spirit of this community are welcome here. And I reminded them that it was not an open welcome, that the welcome that is offered is one that invites people to enter into a particular spirit of community, where people are safe, where they can be assured that they will be held with respect, that they come into a place where they know that they're not going to be marginalized because of who they love or where they live or how much they make, how much education they've had, or whether they can speak before thousands. And in that moment, there was a light bulb that went off. That welcome is tempered by an ability to enter into the social contract that says, I'm not just here for me. This is not about my truth alone. This is about the truths that we are able to hold in common that reflect our deepest values. And if that sounds political, it's not. And I'll say more about that in a moment. One of the consequences of this covenant, given the nature of our latest election results, we might ask is, if there are voices here that abide by this vision of community, the spirit of community, if you will, but whose political proclivities are hidden for fear of reprisal or being ostracized. As long as that I have been ministering here, there have been a number of fiscally conservative members and friends of this congregation who have called this place their spiritual home, but also abide in a spirit of justice for those who have and continue to be marginalized and oppressed. So one thing I think about is what voices are missing and who is unable to manifest the integrity of their own civic vision here. Clearly, we have a great deal to ponder as a nation about the sense of many who have felt alienated from the increasing economic stability that has so often been touted recently. And I wonder what opportunities this invites us to consider as we move forward as a community of faith. One among us, who I think is with us online this morning, sent this to me early and said, and I quote, "I know that your sermon is written, but you might want to." Little did he know. This is what it said. This morning I read an article from CNN, an excerpt of which is this: "Pick one word to describe Republicans and Donald Trump," and the focus group moderator asked, "and one word to describe Democrats and Kamala Harris." "Crazy," said a white woman in her 40s who hadn't gone to college, and then preachy. Focus group was organized by Harris supporters in Western Pennsylvania not long after the presidential debate in September, was made up of a dozen people who voted for Trump in 2016 and Joe Biden in 2020, but who were undecided this time except for being sure that they'd vote. Asked to pick between the two words, the woman said she'd probably go with crazy, anguish clearly in her voice. "Because crazy doesn't look down on me," she said. "Preachy does." Here's where the challenge is, I think, as a community of faith. We might ask in what ways our most ardent values and beliefs come across as belittling when articulated. Our DNA as a religious community is that of a movement that was born out of rural sensibilities. Its message was in direct opposition to those religious traditions that use doctrine as a reason to maintain the social and political status quo. The liberatory message of universal salvation was not something primarily motivating to those who already understood by social convention or religious conviction that they were saved, but by those whose fundamental experience in this country was the exact opposite. But the station was the exact opposite, and born by the station they were ascribed. And we continue to manifest the essence of this core message as we serve those who are most marginalized and fight for those rights and ways of being that provide for health, prosperity, and power for all people. In doing so, however, we have also alienated those who feel that their well-being is also to be honored. To reckon with injustice is not to transfer the burden of inequity. It is to expand our solidarity for the well-being of all. In this way, our continuing effort and service does not change. It grows. How do we find energy for this, you ask, and you know who you are. Given how many of us continue to find ourselves in a malaise. A change in perspective helps. This week, I've been returning to the words of Albert Camus, the Algerian-born French writer, in his reminiscence about his hometown in Algiers, Tipasa. I turned to this because this is also Veterans Day weekend. And I have appreciated the experience of Camus not so much as a veteran, but as someone who experienced the ravages of war and then had the courage to write about it. Hear the words of Anthony Lyon, who teaches Camus. He said, in Return to Tipasa, Camus returns to Algeria for the second time since World War II. In his first trip, he went out to the ruins of Tipasa, an old Roman city where he spent endless summer days when he was young, and he was disappointed with the experience. His first trip to Tipasa failed because he wanted it to be the same as when he was young. Not an outrageous expectation of ruins, I suppose, says Lyons. But the ruins had changed. They were fenced off and a guardian was posted, which destroyed the sense of being alone and free that young Camus had enjoyed there. Of course, it's more than that. Even if the ruins were the same, Camus was not. On his second pilgrimage, he was more modest in his desire and sought only the moment. Camus was fortunate, he claims, saying, I found exactly what I had come seeking. He reflects on this moment when he's at one with his surroundings. It refreshes him, allowing him to return to France and continue his work of being a voice against injustice. Lyon continues, I want to think about the moment of total communion Camus experiences among the Tipasa ruins. Tipasa is an ordinary part of the world. It's a ruin among ruins, on a cliff over the sea like so many other beautiful vistas. Its importance, its nearly sacred and almost mystical character derives from Camus' own personal history with the place. This history is important. I would go to Tipasa as a stranger, and the geography would welcome me in one of the ways new places greet strangers. As a tourist, as an explorer, as a friend or family. For Camus, his returning home, his relationship with this place, this is where he was young, and his hope 20 years later is the same is some of the freedom and innocence he knew, then continued to rest in this space because he had stopped feeling it long ago. Then he writes, I know this hope well. That hope can be summed up in a singularly beautiful sentence by Camus. Au milieu de l'hiver, j'apprenais enfant qu'il y avait en moi une tête invincible. In the middle of winter, I have learned that there was an invincible summer within me. in the middle of winter, I had learned there was an invincible summer within me. It reminds me very much of the sentiment of Mary Oliver's poem, Wild Geese. You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. Tell me about despair, yours, and I will tell you mine. Meanwhile, the world goes on. Meanwhile, the sun and the clear pebbles of the rain are moving across the landscape, over the prairies and the deep trees and the mountains and the rivers. Meanwhile, the wild geese, high in the clear blue air, are heading home again. Whoever you are, no matter how lonely, the world offers itself to you, your imagination, calls to you like the wild geese, harsh and exciting, over and over announcing your place in the family of things. Camus comes to a moment of healing from the battle scars of his activism and the experience of war by engaging in a change of perspective. The moment of his awakening comes high above the sea and his small village, when he recognizes what had given him so much peace in the first place. He reflects, at noon on the half-sandy slopes covered with heliotropes like the foam left by the furious waves of the past few days as they withdrew, I watched the sea barely swelling at the hour with an exhausted motion. And I satisfied two thirsts. One cannot long neglect without drying up. I mean, loving and admiring. For there is merely bad luck in not being loved. There is misfortune in not loving. And then he says something for us all to ponder. He says, all of us today are dying of this misfortune. For violence and hatred dry up the heart itself. The long fight for justice exhausts the love that nevertheless gave birth to it. In the clamor in which we live, love is impossible and justice does not suffice. This is why Europe, he writes, hates daylight and is only able to set injustice up against injustice. But in order to keep justice from shriveling up like a beautiful orange fruit containing nothing but a bitter, dry pulp, I discovered once more in Tapasa that one must keep intact one's freshness, a cool wellspring of joy. Love the day that escapes injustice and return to combat having won that light. Here I recaptured in former beauty a young sky. And I measured my luck, realizing at last that in the worst years of our madness, the memory of that sky had never left me. This was what in the end kept me from despairing. I had always known that the ruins of Tapasa were younger than our new constructions or our bomb damage. There the world began over again every day in an ever new light. O light, he writes. This is the cry of all the characters of ancient drama brought face to face with their fate. This is the last resort. This last resort was ours too, and I knew it now. In the middle of winter, I at last discovered that there was in me an invincible summer. Here lies the essence, beloved, of thriving in the midst of adversity, to find those places and those people and those moments which remind you of all that is unchangeable in the midst of change that terrifies. For me, it was only last night when this was made clear. I had the fortune of accompanying Pauline Courchaine, who was honored last night with an award by the African Community Education Program for her decade of service on their behalf, and inviting us into that service with our Shoebox campaign, which we are transitioning this year to a new organization. And she was honored there, but before that ceremony of award took place, she and I sat with a group of people we did not know from a local bank. We ate delicious food, engaged in wonderful conversation, and experienced immeasurable joy that exuded from the youth in particular of the African education community. And part of that was a fashion show with clothes made by many of those youth in a workshop sponsored by the African Community Education Program. And they strutted their stuff to raucous cheers and heart-pounding music. I mean, I was sitting right beside Pauline, and we were pretty much screaming at each other in order to be heard above the drum beat. And they danced, and they cheered, and they smiled, and they celebrated. And all the while, I kept thinking to myself, these are the folks that are the most scared about what is about to transpire in this country. These are the folks that are most marginalized, whose immigrant status is likely to be challenged. One would have expected that they might have canceled the ACE Gala in service to what many must have been feeling this week. But no. Because in order to combat hate, they needed to exude love. In order to combat fear, they needed to exude an ethic of hospitality. They needed to invite their best selves into service of their community. And in doing so, they discovered in that moment, au milieu de vers, j'apprenais, enfant, il y avait en moi un été invincible. In the middle of winter, we discovered that there was in me, in them, and in us an invincible summer. Amen. And blessed be. So, the good news today, as we head into our offertory, is that Pauline Courchaine was honored for the work that she has done so well for a decade. And in that, we were also honored as a congregation who accompanied her through this process and who also took great pleasure in sharing what we had with those that we wanted to experience Christmas. And this is the kind of thing that we are called to do and to be and will be ever more so in the coming months and years. So really the message today in terms of our service continuing is hang on. You ain't seen nothing yet. But together we will see much, and we will dance, and we will wear bright colors, and we will show joy in the face of fear. We will love in the face of hatred. We will serve in the face of isolation. we will be a community of love, hope, and justice. And that is good news. And so it is every time that we come together as a community of faith, we pause for a moment of offering. That which we can contribute in service to the mission and ministries of this congregation, in the hopes that we might continue to be all that we are possible of becoming and being, and to strive to meet every challenge along the way. And so I invite those of you who would like to contribute electronically to on your phones to dial 508-231-5335. Follow the instructions on your screen. And for those of you who are here today, you're welcome to lean forward, pull out the checkbook of the person sitting in front of you, write the check you've always wanted to write, for our offering will now be received. So we come to that. Let me see if I am on. Come to that time in our service when we're given an opportunity to pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts, most profoundly on our minds, or in the work of our hands in the days that have transpired, or in the prospect of days to come. Joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows today to come forward and form lines on either side of the sanctuary, to come speak briefly into the microphone, telling us first who you are, so that those using our auditory enhancement devices might also participate in this important ritual. And then to light a candle as joy or sorrow if you so desire. And once again, if you're online and would like to share a joy or sorrow, please do put it in the chat preceded by the words, "Please read," so that those who are monitoring our online ministry can also share those during this time in the service.
Good morning, I'm Matt Bajun with a very hot mic. I'm thinking today of my mom who had total knee replacement surgery earlier in the week. I'm also thinking of my grandfather, my mother's father, who was a veteran of World War II, very close to me, and he would have celebrated his 107th birthday if he was still alive. So lighting a candle for both of them today.
Bonjour. I did make this announcement last week, but I'm going to make it again this week because there are more people here. As Aaron said, we did have to say goodbye to, not goodbye, au revoir, to the ACE program because there are so many students now that we would never be able to fill 120 shoe boxes of gifts. So we have transferred to another program. These kids are at risk, inner city Worcester kids. They are from a single parent home, or they live with grandparents, or they live in a shelter, or they are immigrant children. And so we're going there. And it'll take me a while to remember this. I don't know what part is the title, or anyway, it's called Creative Hub, Judy's Jubilee After School Arts Program. And this person, do you know it? So this person believes that one can heal through art and one can find one's balance through art. And so this is what is offered to kids after school. So that's what we're going with. Next week, we will start the sign-ups, and the process will be exactly the same. But it makes me happy that we're still able to provide gifts for kids who probably wouldn't get a personal gift. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name's Melissa. Like a lot of people in 2016, I told myself maybe this won't be as bad as I expect. And I'm not using that one this time. It's not a comfort to me because I think it will be just as bad as we expect. And then I said to myself, well, we have a couple of months to get ready for this. And then I woke up Wednesday morning and opened my emails, and it was in my work email. I'm a journalist, and this is going to trickle down to weekly regional news, and it has. Some conservatives are targeting educators who express their concerns on social media, and one of them is in our district, they say. I will verify that as a good journalist, but I'm really not looking forward to this, and I'm really afraid. So thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Paul. Everybody knows that. And on the 12th of November would be my mother's birthday. She was born in 1919, so she'd be over 100 if she was still alive. And that, sorrow. It's like, it's funny because I heard, like, as you grow up, you learn to love your parents, and as you get older, you learn to forgive them. And I finally accepted, I changed the word to, you learn to accept them because you realize they're scared little children like we are, but in a bigger package. And speaking of scared, this week, I was disappointed about the results of the elections as well. But what I'm more concerned about is the minions that DJT will have Stephen Miller, for one, really scares me. I mean, to me, he looks like Putin's love child. But just hoping the best for America. And as I grew up, as you know, many of you know, I'm an AA, and they have a thing which they call "This Too Will Pass." You know, and it's having a great time. This too will pass. And the other thing I learned in it is like, be careful who you resent for, because you'll turn up just like them. Thanks.
So I'll start with saying that everybody's okay. But Tuesday was doubly traumatic for us because while our son Tim was on his way to vote and taking a left-hand turn in our Prius, he was T-boned by an ambulance screaming past him from behind. So everybody's okay except the car. So we totaled our Prius, which was also sad for us because we inherited that car from my mother-in-law, who passed away about a year and a half ago, but we got it when she stopped driving, longer than that. But anyway, her spirit was sort of always in that car for us. So that's sad for us too, but also trying to hold gratitude that, nothing more serious happened. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Courtney Brooks, and I am a working class princess. My sorrow is that my people, the working class, have moved away from what would support them. Oh, goodness.
Okay.
But my hope is that if you really look in some states, they didn't vote against some of the things we work for, right? In Florida, they got 57% towards trying to get rid of the abortion ban. Tammy Baldwin's going back to the Senate. So there is hope that there are people that are Trump voters that will fight with us. So one of my other joys and hopes, I'm sorry, I found what my work is. I don't think a lot of people know how to talk to the working class. I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and my mom worked 2 jobs to do it, to pay that monthly payment, and she today couldn't do that. My working class people of today couldn't work 2 jobs and send their kid to school. It just wouldn't happen. It sucks, excuse me. Anyway, I think my work is to help people know how to talk to each other with respect and dignity. It even happened to me yesterday. My father-in-law, I adore him. I love him. I truly, he said yesterday that he emailed some friends, and he's a banker's son. He emailed some friends to say what his synopsis was of the election and why it went the way it was. And then he PS'd that his daughter-in-law, who's of the working class, and I'm offended, like that bit, to like, but he was giving he was listening to me. He repeated to them what I said to him, and he was listening. But it still made me mad that he labeled me in that email. So going back to what Aaron said before, there were people that decided for crazy over being looked down upon. So that's what I'll say to start. If anyone here, not everyone voted and understood what they were voting for, and they voted against some of their ideals, even economically. So just don't preach. Don't look your nose down on people. There are people in that group who don't want marginalized people to be hurt, but they do want stability, and they do want things for their family. That's all.
Hi, I'm Kristen. My mom came to visit me on Friday after visiting a couple of friends from here. And she had come to my work and met another very special woman in my life that I call my work mother. And it was very special and happy to me to see them together.
That's great. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Dawn Dowd. I have the honor of sharing joys and sorrows on behalf of our online community. And this morning, make sure I read this properly. Oh, I'm so happy to read this too. Laura Lenahan has shared, please read, "My joy today, Nana surprising Mason with a dinosaur expo in Rhode Island."
And this that was shared earlier by card, the Craig and Deb Van Battenberg welcomed a new grandson 10 days ago, Lorenzo Stephen Van Battenberg. And our son and daughter-in-law are doing well. Congratulations to the Van Battenberg family. So I would like you to remain seated and find in your teal hymnals hymn 1009. So we start with the low part. You know who you are. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe. Then we add the I breathe in peace, breathe out. I breathe out love, breathe in. I breathe in peace, breathe out. I breathe out. Now those of you with really high voices, when I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in. I breathe in peace. Breathe out. I breathe out love. I breathe in. I breathe in peace. I breathe out. I breathe out love. Let's do this. Breathe in. Breathe out. Keep doing that. Breathe in. Breathe out. Keep doing it. Spirit of life, we breathe together this day in order that we might find a moment of wholeness, of healing, in the midst of all that challenges us, in the midst of our anger or our joy, our pain, our sadness, our expectation. We come to this place in search of companions of the Spirit, mindful this day of the gift of life, of the legacy of those who have come before, this weekend in honor of those who have placed themselves between us and the failure we know as war. Help us gather within us the courage to remember them, each other, those on the margins and those at the center. But most of all, may we remember our capacity to do this. Breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. in your gray hymnals, if you turn to the back to number 464. Actually, before we do that, do we have our RE program who would like to make an announcement? This small group of people too good for me? Oh my goodness. All right.
We would like to make a small announcement. We were busy in Fellowship Hall during the service, and we would like to announce that we put together 37 fixing bags. Yeah. And these will be picked up on Saturday at the Loaves and Fishes Food Pantry. So I want to just thank all of our helpers. We also put in little notes that said things like, "We hope this nourishes your family." So hands together for our helpers. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Let us read responsively the words of Judy Chicago. And then all that has divided us will merge. And then softness will come to a world that is harsh and unkind. And then both women and men will be strong. And then all will be rich and free and varied. And then all will share equally in the earth's abundance. And then all will nourish the young. And then all will live in harmony with each other and the earth. Would you please continue with your gray hymnals, Rise in Body or in Spirit, and join together in hymn number 108. Creation. when the last campaign ad has aired, when the polling stations are closed and the count has been certified, when pundits and politicians turn in for the night, and pollsters and political operatives are turning their thoughts to the next big race, the work of citizenship remains. To care more for the marginalized than for profit margins. To be mindful that quality education is far less expensive than mass incarceration. To insist that military intervention is a last resort, not the preemptive prerogative of the powerful. In short, to know that our true wealth is the welfare of all beings in the planet we call home. À milieu de l'hiver, j'apprenais enfant qu'il y avait en moi un été invincible. Amen. And blessed be. Please be seated. Once again, beloved, worship in this place has come to an end, but our service continues. Next, with an opportunity for refreshment and soup and conversation. Are there any very quick announcements? If so, make them from your seat, and I will repeat them. Watch for Christmas Carol sing-along. Karen? Excellent. Thank you so much.
Two opportunities. This is for IHN this week, Friday night bingo, and Saturday night we are having a Led Zeppelin 4 tribute benefit at the JMAC. Find out all the info at ihnworcester.org.
You need cooling. I'm sorry.
Tomorrow night, there is no bell choir rehearsal. However, there is a bell choir cleaning and pizza.
Bell choir cleaning and pizza.
So if you're interested in bells, 6 o'clock.
If you are waiting to get your Thanksgiving pies from the pie fundraiser, it has been postponed to Pie Day in March.
Pie Day in March. Excellent. Let's go eat. Yes. What?
If anybody's interested in running away in the spring, we will meet after soup and coffee.
Runaway weekend for women is going to meet after soup and coffee. Let's have at it.